Hello, this is Charles Scoble, your Golden Harvest Great Lakes area agronomist, and welcome back for another edition of the Golden Harvest Agronomy In Action podcast. So today is August the 7th, and the season is turning out to be, boy, a list of the haves and the have-nots as far as rainfall is concerned. South of I-96 and really especially south of I-94, rains continue to be more prevalent than north of I-69 with many exceptions. Now, my farm in the Langsburg, Perry area is, boy, still in drought conditions. And boy, at 30 miles to the northeast, boy, they've got just plenty of crop moisture available. So, this week on the podcast, we're going to talk about, first off, a little area update, including a pollination update and a reminder on spider mites. And then, secondly, we're going to talk about the keys to identifying red crown rot in soybeans with our special guest, Mr. Reid Stoller. So, grab your cup of coffee and let's talk agronomy. So, in trying to put together an area update for this time of the year, it gets a little bit challenging because, the area I'm covering has a lot of different things going on right now. While I was up in the Thumb on Wednesday, I drove by cornfields that looked pretty good and, boy, others that kind of looked like pineapples with their leaves straight up and just rolled up to preserve their moisture. Walking into a field in the Brown City area that looked decent from the outside showed corn just burning up on the inside of the canopy. And, when I peeled back some ears, what I found was pollination on many ears that was kind of sporadic. The heat and the dry conditions during pollination there caused multiple kernels to just never pollinate, which is going to likely lead to some reduced yield potential no matter what the weather provides us the remainder of the year. So, in fact, the loss of just 2.5 to 3.2 kernels per plant across a standard population of 28 to 35,000 plants per acre, that can reduce the total yield by a bushel. So, what does this mean for us right now, you ask? Well, it means that it's that time of the year for you to spend a couple hours in your fields next week, peel back some ears, and just see how pollination fared on your own farm. And, it's just kind of in order to set that proper expectation come harvest. Now, for my Golden Harvest seed advisors out there, I encourage you to visit your key customers' fields this week. Scout for successful pollination, and while you're out there, why don't you put up some field signs on those good looking fields on your well-traveled roads. This just always pays dividends to show pride in your brand and your presence in your neighborhood. Now, I'm also seeing spider mites in those droughty fields across my geography. Those brown patches on the field edges or, even out into the field, they're just not going to get better over time if we stay dry. Now, these pests rob real yield every day they're left untreated. So, if you see these patches in your soybean fields, get out there and do the usual field check to see if they're still alive and well. As we've trained in the past, you simply grab some affected plants, take them to a white surface like a piece of paper or the hood of a white truck, and just pound that foliage onto that surface to shake off the mites. Now, after you wait about 10 to 15 seconds, if you have live mites, you should observe what looks like grains of sand moving on that surface. Those are the mites. And if they're present, you need to plan the application of a miticide. Now, please don't let this easy to control pests get away with stealing your yields this season. So, next on our podcast, I wanted to give Reid Stoller, our Syngenta seed care specialist for the area, a chance to share with you what I believe to be a really important thing to be scouting for in our soybean fields over the next few weeks, that red crown rot. Now, he and I talked about it a while at a SCN and SDS training in Southeast Michigan this past weekend. He's seen this new disease live and in person. Well, that just makes him the perfect guest to share with you how to identify it, how devastating it can be, and just how to manage it. So, Reid, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, hey, so as we're thinking about this, share with my listeners here, what are you seeing out there? Where are you seeing it, and how bad is it?
Sure. So, what I want to say right off the bat is red crown rot, sudden death syndrome are very similar in the way they look when you walk up to them, but they're both hard to find going 60 mile an hour on the road. I'll say that right away. So,
Yep.
where we where we are finding it the most, Charles, is it seems to be in those areas where historically folks have had some SDS and are relatively used to seeing that, in the August timeframe. So that's kind of where we're picking up the most. And I'd say uh, definitely the hot spot right now is south of 70 in Indiana. But I know it's some other places with some ID that we've had through Purdue and Ohio State as well. Because last year we had our first confirmed case in the state of Ohio. But that seems where we're seeing it the most is south of 70 to this point. But I know it's been confirmed in three or four counties in Northeast Indiana as well. So that's where
Well,
we're seeing it is in just historically SDS areas.
and Reed, the other thing is, I know Michigan State is really interested in seeing if it's making it up to our area. I actually got a test kit sent to me that they are doing free testing if you happen to think you might have it, because we think about those red galls on those stems as an identification, but I know you shared with me that those aren't always there. So I guess what should my listeners be really looking for when they dig those plants up? They start looking at those roots. I think it might be SDS, but it might be red crown rot. How do we tell?
Yeah. So the best way that I can say is when you think you've got maybe some SDS symptoms showing up, walk out to those areas and take a look at those plants and stand there and look. One giveaway, it's actually one of the things that makes people call in is they see some SDS plants that they suspect, but those plants look worse than what they're used to. And what I mean by that is they have a look almost like Phytophthora, to where the leaves just turn completely brown and kind of slough down, and the worst affected plants look just completely dead, but the leaves are still hanging on, just crispy and brown. Because that with SDS, as you may know, Charles, the those leaves really kind of fall to the ground, and the petioles just kind of stay there on the plant, just kind of like with a stick type of look. But with red crown rot, those leaves stay on the plant and just kind of turn brown and are still hanging on there and just slough down like that Phytophthora look. So that's one thing. And then when you see a plant like that, or even when you think it's just SDS, you pull up those, you pull it out of the ground, and that's right there is another one because with red crown rot, they pull out like a very, very loose tooth. I mean, they just are so easy to pull up. The roots are rotted worse, and so they pull out really easy. So that's another something to look for. And then when you look at that the base that the stem there, if you don't find the red perithecia, those red balls, um, those don't stay red for long. They fruit and they do their thing, and then they start to decay and kind of turn white and maybe even kind of tan or pink. So there's that there as well. If you see any type of weird discoloration like that, I'd get in touch with somebody, and somebody like yourself that could send that into Michigan State for identification.
Yeah, so that to me I think is really interesting too, because we always see that kind of spiky look on those SDS fields, and that sounds like it's
Uh-huh.
going to be a real good telltale sign of the difference there for sure. I know as we look at it from a genetic standpoint, we certainly can rate our products and do on some tolerances to red crown rot, but there's no genetic resistance out there. So I guess if I do find it in a field, I'm a farmer out there, what choices do I have to
Sure.
try to manage it?
Yep. So the rotation is an obvious one. Um, you can rotate, to corn because it's not really affecting the corn that bad. And then really tillage doesn't do much. So you're just going to drag it around in the field because it spreads that way. They're microsclerotia. So
Hmm.
if we're used to white mold's got sclerotia as well, but those are rather large in comparison. The sclerotia here on red crown rot is like a powder. So is very fine, can carry in the wind, it can carry, with obviously by soil and water. We see kind of streaks in the field with tillage. We can see streaks in the field where the water has carried it as well. Um, but so tillage isn't really something that's going to help, but there are some seed treatments out there in the market and even some newer ones that have come out, which is why I've gotten pretty involved with it, just being the seed treatment specialist for Syngenta. Yeah, so there's some exciting things there, but overall, it's a disease we definitely don't want in the state of Michigan or anywhere because it can be pretty devastating. And as people know, sudden death syndrome is not good. This is worse as far as yield loss.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that today. And, I've seen some photos of some of our newest seed treatment out there with some really better than expected ability to manage some of that. So I think it's exciting to have at least some tools in our toolbox, but we're going to learn more as time goes on. So, Reid, I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us here today. And to wrap up this week's episode, just a couple reminders. One, get out into your cornfields this next week to evaluate pollination. It's the only way to start to set proper yield expectations come harvest. Second, if you think you've got spider mites, get out there and see if they're still alive. And if they are, get them managed. And three, if you have some yellow areas in your soybeans, get out there and take a look. See if you have some SCN or SDS, or possibly red crown rot. And if you need some help making the call, just contact me or your Golden Harvest sales rep, and we'll be glad to stop on by and take a look. So thanks again for tuning in to this week's Golden Harvest Agronomy in Action podcast. Stay patient, stay safe, and I'll see you in the field.